Did you know that over 300,000 Australian households could be forced to sell their homes in 2026? It sounds extreme, but it's not just a prediction. It's a real possibility if certain laws and policy changes go ahead as planned. From rising land taxes to new climate zoning laws, the Australian housing game is changing fast. Imagine being told your home no longer meets government standards and either you upgrade it or sell it. Or worse, imagine getting hit with a tax you didn't even see coming, one that drains your savings and pushes you to the edge. These aren't wild conspiracy theories, they're policies already being discussed, trialed, or quietly introduced. And some of them might affect you sooner than you think. Stay with us, because the seventh law we'll talk about might impact nearly every homeowner in the suburbs.
Number 1. Nationwide land tax reform. Australia is on the brink of one of the biggest tax shakeups in property history, and it could quietly force thousands of people to sell their homes. Right now, most homeowners pay stamp duty when they buy a property, a one-off, upfront tax. But several state governments are pushing to replace stamp duty with an annual land tax. While this might sound fairer in theory, the real-world impact could be brutal, especially for long-term homeowners. Here's the problem. If you own a property on a large block, even if it's modest, your land value might be high. That means you'll be hit with annual tax bills that increase over time, regardless of your income. For retirees, single parents, or low-income families living in older homes, this could quickly become unaffordable. And here's the scary part. Many of these people bought their homes decades ago, never expecting to face yearly taxes just to keep living there. Governments in NSW and the ACT have already begun trial phases, and more states could follow in 2026. If the policy goes national, we could see a wave of people, especially those in metro and inner suburban areas, being taxed out of their own homes. Can you imagine being forced to sell the home you've lived in for 30 years just to pay a bill that didn't even exist when you bought it? It's a harsh reality that many Australians might face, and it's just the beginning. Up next, we'll look at new energy laws that could cost you thousands and possibly make your home illegal to rent or sell if you can't afford the upgrades.
Number 2. Energy efficiency compliance mandates. What if your home was suddenly declared too inefficient to live in, rent out, or sell unless you spend thousands on upgrades? That's exactly what could happen under proposed energy efficiency laws rolling out across parts of Australia. Starting in 2026, there's growing pressure for all residential properties, including existing homes, to meet minimum energy performance standards. So what does that mean? It could include requirements for solar panels, double-glazed windows, upgraded insulation, energy-efficient hot water systems, and even electric vehicle charging compatibility. These changes aren't cheap. For an average home, the cost of upgrades could easily hit $20,000 to $50,000 or more. And if you don't comply, your home might become legally unfit to lease, making it impossible to earn rental income, or even restricted for sale until improvements are made. This law is designed to reduce emissions and help Australia meet its climate targets. But for everyday homeowners, especially in older houses, it could be financially devastating. Think about it. Retirees living in 1970s brick homes or low-income families in regional towns suddenly being told their house isn't green enough to meet the law. With no way to afford upgrades, many may have no choice but to sell or risk being locked out of the property market entirely. Worse still, buyers could start avoiding homes that don't meet future energy standards, crashing values in entire suburbs overnight. This isn't just about going green. It's about survival in a changing housing market. And it doesn't stop there. Next, we'll uncover how capital gains tax changes could hit your family home, even if you never planned to invest.
Number 3. Capital gains tax on the family home. For decades, Australians have enjoyed one of the most generous tax exemptions in the world. No capital gains tax, CGT, on your primary residence. But that could soon change. and for many homeowners, it could mean a massive financial blow. While nothing has been officially announced yet, economic think tanks, policy advisors, and even some politicians are pushing for a CGT on family homes above a certain value, especially in high-demand suburbs. Why? Because the government is under pressure to fix the housing crisis and find new revenue sources, and high-value homes are in the spotlight. Here's the potential danger. Let's say you bought your home for $700,000, and in 2026, it's worth $1.8 million. Under the proposed change, if your home exceeds the exemption threshold, say $1.5 million, you could be taxed on the profit above that limit when you sell, even if it's your only home. That's potentially tens or even hundreds of thousands in tax on a property you worked your whole life to afford. For families relying on their home sale to downsize, retire, or support their children, this tax could ruin their plans. Worse still, it might force some to sell earlier than planned just to avoid being caught by sudden rule changes. And if the exemption is removed entirely, expect a massive wave of panic selling, especially in cities like Sydney and Melbourne, where average home values already surpass the proposed thresholds. This shift would hit middle-class Australians hard, not just the wealthy. Your home has always been your safety net, but what if, in 2026, it becomes a ticking tax bomb instead? Coming up next, how rising interest rates and mortgage stress could silently push thousands to the edge, or over it. We pour hours of research and effort into every video, so if this helped you, let us know in the comments which law shocked you most. And don't forget to subscribe with just one click. It truly helps us keep going.
Number 4. Mortgage stress and interest rate hikes. While headlines scream about taxes and policy changes, there's a quieter but far more personal force driving Australians to the brink: mortgage stress. And in 2026, it could hit crisis levels. Right now, more than 1 in 4 Australian households with a mortgage are considered to be in financial stress. That means they're spending more than 30% of their income on loan repayments. And with the Reserve Bank of Australia, RBA, warning of more interest rate increases ahead, this situation could get much worse. Think about it. If you locked in a low fixed rate during the pandemic, you may be about to roll on to a variable rate, double or even triple what you were paying before. Suddenly, that $2,000 monthly repayment becomes $3,200 or more. That's an extra $14,000 to $20,000 a year many families simply don't have. And the most dangerous part? This doesn't just affect struggling families. Even dual-income households in decent jobs are finding it hard to keep up, especially with cost of living pressures piling on. As defaults increase, banks may begin tightening lending criteria, making refinancing harder. Homeowners who fall behind could be forced to sell, not because they want to, but because they have no other option. We're not talking about investment properties or luxury homes here. We're talking about the homes people raise their families in. If rates keep climbing and wage growth stays flat, 2026 could see a wave of forced sales, quietly driven by mortgage stress, a trend that doesn't make headlines but devastates lives. Up next, how changes to negative gearing laws could completely flip the investor market and leave homeowners scrambling. Number 5. The end of negative gearing? For decades, negative gearing has been a powerful tool for Australian property investors. It allowed them to offset property losses against their taxable income, reducing their tax bills, and in many cases, making it more attractive to hold on to multiple properties. But now, in the face of rising inequality and a worsening housing crisis, there's growing political momentum to wind back or abolish negative gearing entirely. And 2026 could be the year it finally happens. Here's why that matters. If negative gearing is scrapped or restricted to new builds only, as some proposals suggest, thousands of investors who rely on those tax breaks to stay cash flow positive could find their properties becoming financial deadweights. Suddenly, that smart investment turns into a money pit. And what happens next? Investors may start offloading properties en masse, flooding the market. This could drive down prices, especially in suburbs where investor ownership is high, and trigger a chain reaction of panic selling, mortgage stress, and falling equity. It gets worse. Everyday homeowners who purchased at peak prices may suddenly find themselves in negative equity, meaning they owe more than their property is worth. That makes it nearly impossible to refinance or sell without taking a huge loss. In short, removing negative gearing might fix some housing affordability issues, but it could also destabilize the entire market in the short term, leaving both investors and homeowners exposed. Could a tax change meant to help renters actually end up hurting homeowners the most? Stick around, because next, we'll explore how climate zoning laws could turn your dream location into a financial nightmare.
Number 6. Climate risk zoning. What if you woke up one morning to find your suburb reclassified as a high-risk zone and your home's value slashed overnight? It's already happening. As climate change accelerates, state and local governments are introducing new climate risk zoning laws. These laws identify areas prone to flooding, bushfires, coastal erosion, and rising sea levels, and place strict building or renovation controls on them. In 2026, these classifications are expected to expand dramatically, with national frameworks being discussed to standardize climate risk assessments across Australia. The result? Thousands of homes, especially in low-lying coastal areas, bushland fringes, and river-adjacent suburbs, could be declared high risk. This doesn't just impact new builds. Existing homeowners may face massive increases in insurance premiums or total denial of coverage. Tighter restrictions on renovations, rebuilding, or even selling. Sharp declines in property value due to buyer hesitancy. For many, the cost of insuring a home in a high-risk zone could rise to $10,000 per year, making it unaffordable to keep. And without insurance, banks may refuse to lend, effectively freezing the market in those areas. Even worse, if a natural disaster strikes, uninsured or underinsured homeowners could be financially ruined, left with no way to recover or sell. This isn't some distant possibility. Entire towns in Queensland and New South Wales have already faced disaster-related zoning changes, and more are coming. Could your dream home soon be declared uninsurable or unsellable? Stay tuned. Next, we'll reveal how foreign ownership rules might force Aussies living overseas to sell their properties back home.
Number 7. Foreign ownership rules. You might think that only wealthy investors are affected by foreign ownership laws, but in 2026, these changes could hit ordinary Australians living overseas hard. In recent years, both federal and state governments have tightened restrictions on foreign buyers in an effort to cool the housing market. This includes higher stamp duties, annual land taxes, and strict ownership reporting rules. But what's flying under the radar is how these laws are now affecting Australian citizens who live or work abroad. Under current legislation, Aussies who become non-residents for tax purposes may be treated as foreign investors. This means they could be subject to extra taxes like foreign owner surcharges up to 2 to 4% annually in some states, new capital gains tax rules removing exemptions on the family home, penalties or forced divestment if they don't meet new compliance regulations. By 2026, it's expected that reporting and enforcement will ramp up, particularly through the Australian Taxation Office and FIRB, Foreign Investment Review Board. And that means many Aussies overseas could be forced to sell, either because they can't afford the new costs or they're no longer eligible to own property under changing definitions. Imagine moving abroad temporarily for work, only to find your family home back in Sydney now comes with thousands in extra taxes every year, or that you're suddenly in breach of ownership rules you didn't even know existed. And it's not just expats. Foreign investors who bought during the boom years may also be pushed to sell due to rising holding costs and restrictions. Could this lead to a sudden sell-off of thousands of homes across major cities? It's more likely than you think. Up next, the controversial vacancy tax that could hit investors and second homeowners where it hurts most.
Number 8. Vacancy taxes. Think your second property is safe just sitting empty? Think again. In an effort to combat housing shortages, several Australian states are introducing or expanding vacancy taxes, and by 2026, they could become a nationwide policy. These taxes target residential properties that are left vacant for more than 6 months in a year, with the goal of pushing investors to either rent them out or sell. Victoria already has a vacant residential land tax, and similar measures are being considered in New South Wales and Queensland. But here's the kicker: the rates are rising. In some cases, property owners may soon face annual penalties of 1% to 3% of the home's total value if the property is unoccupied. Let that sink in. If you own a $1.5 million apartment and it sits empty, you could be charged $15,000 to $45,000 per year just for not using it. This could hit investors waiting for better market conditions, owners of holiday homes or city units, Australians living overseas who leave homes vacant, properties tied up in legal disputes or family transitions. With rising interest rates and holding costs, these taxes could make it financially impossible to keep a vacant property, forcing owners to sell sooner than planned. What's more, compliance is becoming tighter. Councils and state authorities are using utility bills, tax data, and property monitoring tech to detect vacant homes, meaning there's nowhere to hide. If you thought you could just hold and wait, 2026 might prove you wrong. Coming up next, what happens when your home is declared heritage and you're stuck with the costs, restrictions, and red tape you never asked for?
Number 9. Heritage listings. Imagine this. You've owned your home for years, maybe even decades. It's charming, a little dated, but nothing special. Until one day, you receive a letter from the council saying your property has been heritage listed. Sounds like an honor, right? But in reality, it could be a costly nightmare. Across Australia, local councils are rapidly expanding heritage protection zones, aiming to preserve the character of older homes and neighborhoods. But what many homeowners don't realize is that a heritage listing can severely limit what you can do with your own property. Want to renovate? You'll need special approvals, which are often slow and expensive. Want to rebuild or knock down parts of your home? In most cases, it's completely banned. Even simple changes like replacing windows, fences, or roofing materials can be subject to strict rules. Here's the scary part. Heritage listings can significantly reduce your home's market value because many buyers don't want to deal with the red tape, extra costs, or restrictions. That means your pool of interested buyers shrinks, and so does your negotiating power if you decide or are forced to sell. In some suburbs, entire streets are being reclassified, especially in areas with rising development pressure. What feels like a protective law could actually trap you in an expensive home that you can't easily modify or sell for its full worth. And unlike other property changes, you often don't get a choice. The decision is made by council, and fighting it can be costly, with no guarantee of success. So, is your classic home about to become a financial burden disguised as cultural preservation? Coming up next, Law 10, where zoning changes and subdivision bans could push homeowners out of once safe suburbs.
Number 10. Zoning changes and subdivision bans. You might think zoning laws are just boring council jargon, but in 2026, they could be the final push that forces thousands of Australians to sell up and move on. Across the country, governments are under pressure to increase housing supply. Their solution? Rezone established suburbs to allow for medium and high-density development. Think townhouses, duplexes, and even apartment blocks where single-family homes once stood. While that might sound like progress, it's tearing communities apart.
In many areas, longtime homeowners are being caught in the crossfire. Some suburbs are seeing sudden zoning changes that allow developers to buy up homes and build multi-unit housing. At first glance, this might seem like a chance to cash in, but here's where it gets messy. Councils are also introducing subdivision bans in certain character zones, stopping homeowners from splitting large blocks. New zoning can increase rates based on development potential, even if you don't plan to build. Your quiet street could turn into a construction zone for years, slashing livability and home value. For many families, this creates a no-win situation. Stay and watch your neighborhood change around you, or sell before things get worse, often at a reduced price due to uncertainty and noise. And worse, in areas where zoning bans block future development, your property's value may plummet compared to neighboring blocks that are approved for subdivision or high-density builds. So whether you're in a rezone hotspot or a protected zone, the pressure to sell is real and growing. As Australia rushes to fix its housing crisis, ordinary homeowners are paying the price. But don't worry, next we'll wrap everything up and show you how to protect yourself before these laws hit your doorstep.
As we've seen, 2026 could bring a perfect storm of legal, financial, and environmental changes that may force thousands of Australians to sell their homes, even when they don't want to. From new land tax systems and energy upgrade mandates to the rising threat of climate zoning, heritage listings, and mortgage stress, these aren't just distant possibilities. Many are already being rolled out in stages across the country. And it's not just investors or millionaires at risk. Everyday Australians, retirees, first home buyers, growing families, and expats could all be affected by these laws in different, sometimes unexpected ways. The most dangerous part? Many homeowners won't see it coming until it's too late. But here's the good news. You don't have to be caught off guard. By staying informed and taking a few smart steps now, you can protect your home, your finances, and your future. Coming up next, let's talk about how to prepare before these changes hit your front door.
Feeling overwhelmed? You're not alone. But there are real practical steps you can take right now to stay ahead of these coming laws and avoid being caught in a financial trap. 1. Stay informed on policy changes. Set alerts for housing legislation updates in your state. Follow trusted property news sources or subscribe to government planning newsletters. Knowledge is your first line of defense. 2. Get a property health check. Hire a professional to assess your home's energy efficiency, zoning status, flood, fire risk, and compliance with future regulations. Knowing your home's weak points can help you plan or sell strategically. 3. Speak to a financial advisor. A licensed advisor can help you understand how potential capital gains taxes, interest hikes, and land tax changes might impact your long-term plans. Don't wait until you're in crisis. Plan while you have options. 4. Consider downsizing or relocating early. If your property falls into a high-risk category, it may be smarter to sell on your terms rather than be forced to later. This gives you the freedom to reinvest or reduce your cost of living. 5. Secure insurance and legal support. Make sure your home is properly insured against climate risks and get legal advice if you're facing a heritage listing or zoning dispute. The future of property in Australia is changing fast, but with the right moves today, you can stay ahead of tomorrow's risks. Before you go, which of these 10 laws do you think is the most dangerous? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. If you found this video eye-opening, check out our previous video on the top 5 suburbs set to crash in 2026. It's a must-watch. We put hours of research and effort into bringing you the truth, so please support us with a like and hit that subscribe button. It's just one click, but it means everything to us.